Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining this athletes webinar for Asia and Oceania. I know that we have more than 550 registered participants for this live webinar, and this is targeted to the athletes from WADA webinar. And I'm just going to share the screen to go through some of the housekeeping matter as well as objectives to go through. Give me a second. Again, thank you very much for joining this athletes webinar for Asia and Oceania. My name is Yai Yamamoto, Director of Asia Oceania Office in WADA. I'll be a moderator for today. And of course, I have two great speakers for this live webinar. Before doing the introduction, I need to go back. I just want to make sure that, what is it that we're trying to achieve from here? And I'm sure you have taken a look at, what's this athletes webinar all about when we publish it to make it on live. So number one is really that what is it WADA is all about? We have been taking in our strategy plan 25-29 right now that we do have athlete-centered approach. Athletes are everything, everything that we do. And of course, we like to share the opportunities for the athletes like this in the webinar to be engaged in clean sport and of course, contribute to sport. And at the same time that we wish to highlight the importance of athletes' voice through this webinar. And also, we like to empower the athlete to speak up, utilizing the independent ombuds, which is going to be covered after my introduction. As I said, and as you may know them, that we have two great speakers. One is the chair of the WADA Athletes Council, Ryan Pini. He's from Papua New Guinea. And the other one, of course, is the independent ombudsperson, Anna. They're going to do the introduction by themselves, but we are lucky that we have those two great game players in this athletes webinar, and looking forward to hearing the Athletes Council's perspective as well as Athletes on Anti-Doping Ombuds perspective with regard to athlete-centered approach. So the very first component is done by Ryan in terms of the contents, the going through some Athletes Council, what is it the Athletes Councils do? So if you wonder as an athlete, not necessarily know about WADA Athletes Council, this is a time that Ryan's going to share with you some of those objectives and impact, as well as Group 3 appointment processes to come, and also some of the projects that's undertaken, led by Athletes Council. The second component, led by Anna, regarding ombuds. I know that for some, ombuds itself is a bit foreign word in a sense, but this is a time to be shared, for you to be empowered to speak up and share any concerns with her. And then we're going to have Q&A afterwards. So the very final housekeeping matter for you, this webinar is going to be conducted in English. And as you can see, it's been recorded, and we try to make it available via YouTube after this webinar is done, so that as many people as possible we can reach with regard to athlete-centered approach. When we publish, we're gonna blur your names and etc., so that it will become anonymized. In the end of the session of the presentations, there will be a Q&A. So please use the chat box to ask questions throughout the webinar when you're listening to the presentation. So I'm just gonna stop the screen, and then I'm gonna introduce Ryan Pini for his presentation to start with regards to, as I said, WADA's Athletes Council and some of the important projects that's undertaken, led by Ryan as a chair. So microphone is over to you, Ryan, and sharing the screen.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Yaya, and welcome everyone. Thank you for taking the time out to join us, and hopefully you can learn something about the Athlete Council and obviously the Ombuds service as well, which we're very proud of. But I'll share my screen here, so hopefully all that is working as it should. So Yaya had mentioned a bit of a game plan. So you're going to hear about what the Athlete Council is, our objectives and our impact, something that we've been working on over the last 2 years. The importance of the athlete voice, and a lot of you are here today, and hopefully you have that strong voice or want to discover how you can use that, particularly within the anti-doping scenario that we have here. Then just to wrap it up. So we have a very good group of 20 world-class athletes. So in 2023, the athletes committee was changed to a athlete council, and this happened through the reforms that WADA took. It was extensive reforms that happened, and the athlete committee was one of these that changed into an athlete council. So it was significant changes, which is really good. And this was really to ensure that there was robust and diverse representation within WADA. So we are very proud of this work and how far we've come in this space since 2023. These athletes are selected by the athletes. So as you can see here, we are 20 world-class athletes. Well, I'd like to think we're world-class. But Group 1, we have 5 athletes appointed by the IOC and IPC athletes committees. And Group 2, there's 8 athletes elected by the International Federation's athletes commissions. So this happened just recently. Towards the end of last year, there was an election, and we had 4 members elected and 4 members re-elected for a total of 8. So that process happened really, really well. Group 3, which is where I'm a part of, and we have 7 athletes who are selected by appointment. And this appointment panel, just for information, is put together by athlete council members from Group 1 and Group 2. So this way we make sure that the athletes who are appointed are still selected by elected athletes. So it's truly an elected athletes representation here, which is really good. So we are now better represented than any time in WADA's history. So in addition to the president and vice president, so you have Yang, who is the vice president, but both are elite level athletes. And as well as that, we have around 1/3 of both the executive committee and the foundation board former athletes. So it's pretty incredible to see how much impact we have as the athlete's voice. So here, from members from our region, you'll see myself. So I'm from Papua New Guinea in Oceania. I live here, I was born here, and represented Papua New Guinea at 4 Olympics. We have Hong from skating in China, Yu Jiao, powerlifting, a para athlete, and she represents the IPC. Ella, she's from wheelchair basketball in Australia and was re-elected in last year. And then Toby, who was from rowing in New Zealand, and he was recently elected end of last year. So we have our objectives and our impacts. So like I said, we've been working on this for some time. We have several objectives, and I'm just outlining just a few of these. These are constituted in our terms of reference, but obviously we have a very high focus on being the athlete's voice within the executive committee and the foundation board, as well as all the standing committees, which I'll go through, and the working groups. And really, the other important thing is being ambassadors and role models, particularly in the athlete engagement. So I'm hoping that any athletes here who have been to either an Olympics or an Asian Games or another major games that you've seen the WADA athlete booth, this is our engagement opportunities that we get to see face to face with our athletes. We also have very strong initiatives, and you'll see Anna present shortly. She's come from a recommendation that the Athletes Committee and Council had a number of years ago, and came into fruition more recently. So really happy to have Anna here, being able to run this project for us, which we thought was a really important area for athletes. There's also the Human Rights Impact Assessment, who is led by Snezana, who is a human rights expert, and this is to look at the human rights within the code. So we'll have a bit of a report on that towards the end of this year at the World Conference. But we do have a variety of views, and this really guides us on how to work and to ensure that we can find solutions to help the fight against doping in sport. Along with that, we have our action plan. This is something that we developed, and this was developed in coordination with WADA's strategic plan. So it was a really good timing for us to be able to work together. We need to be able to work towards ensuring that we can complete WADA's strategy, and vice versa. We need to work together. So we identified some of these areas. I won't go through them, but really it's a roadmap for us for the next, or for 2 years, so 2024, 2025, for us to be able to look at getting some goals that were ambitious, but were something that we thought were feasible and achievable within the time frame, and very much focused on what we needed to do. So we have these 4 main goals, and with each of these goals, we have a number of activities under each. And there's several pages of this, so I'm not going to go through that, but this allows us to be able to focus on certain actions that we want to accomplish. We have timelines and success measures to go along with this, as well as lead roles from the Athlete Council members. We have a lead for each of those actions. So we're coming towards the end of our first 2-year action plan, and we're working on the next 2 years after that. But this gives you just a bit of an idea of who we are and what we're trying to achieve and get out of our actions and aligning with the WADA strategic plan. So the governance, as I mentioned before, the governance is really important to us, and it's important to WADA, more so for the athletes. I mean, for us to have that voice within WADA is extremely important. And now through those reforms, we have an executive committee member that stands in that position, and that's the chair. So myself, I sit in that space, and we also have Humphrey, who is a member of the WADA Athlete Council. He is there in his capacity as an IOC member representing the sport movement. The foundation board, who meet once a year towards the end of the year, we have Yuhan and Patrick, who are elected from within the Athlete Council. We also have Maya and Emma. So Emma, obviously, if you don't know, but she's the chair of the IOC Athletes Commission, and Maya is the deputy chair of the IOC International Athletes Commission, and Hong as well. So they are representing the collective voice of the athletes in this space. The standing committees that I was telling you about, there's a number of them. We'll see here the WADA Education Committee. We have Dora, who was appointed into this position. She has a good educational background. In fact, she works with the ITA as well in the education area. We have the Finance and Administration Committee. So I sit in that role at the moment for this year until we find a member who has a good financial background. Health Medical Research Committee. We have that's changed actually, but we have another member in that space. So the Health and Medical Research Committee is quite a strong committee. Sorry, that is Yuhan. We do have a good medical background. We have 2 representatives, in fact, that have a good medical background, so can undertake this committee. There's the Compliance and Review Committee. Now, this one is slightly different because of its complete independence from WADA. So while we have an athlete's representative in there, they don't sit on the Athlete Council, but we do have a role in making sure that we have a recommendation for that position. So we have Renee, she is from Australia in that position. And then, as I mentioned before, there's the working groups. So the working groups tend to be put together in around that 12-month piece, and some of them go a lot longer than that. but they're designed to quickly pull together a team to cover a certain topic and make sure there's some recommendations to the Excom Foundation Board. Some of the newest ones that we have is the Task Force on Unintentional Doping. Dora sits in that space, and that comes from the Education Commission committee. There's the Working Group on Contaminations, who Toby fills that position. And then the Working Group on Operational Independence of National Anti-Doping Agencies, and Elizabeth sits in that position. So anytime that we have these roles come forward, we have an active duty, and we select an athlete representative to sit in that space, and that way we have a voice on all of these different committees, which is extremely important for us. So a huge one for us at the moment is the Group 3 appointments. So these are the 7 members who are appointed. So this process is open currently right now. So I'd encourage you to take a screenshot or take a photo of the screen. I'll leave it up for a little while so you can get it. And this will take you to the website, where it will show you all the information that you need to be able to register if you want to register. If you don't, hopefully you know someone that might be a really good role model and an advocate in this space. So please share it around. This is open until the 18th of July. So all of the nominations need to be in by then. There is an eligibility criteria. So just to make sure that you fill all those spaces, be greatly appreciated. This is the Group 3. We're appointed based on whether we have certain experiences. If the council doesn't have enough representation from a certain region or area, so there's a number of different things that go into this to make sure that we're filling any gaps that we have currently. So we have gone through a process. Group 1 and 2 have gone through a gap analysis to find out the strengths that we do have, and then we're looking for the areas that we need currently. So hopefully, if anyone has a financial background, we'll greatly appreciate your role here. But obviously, we do need some strong candidates from the Asian region, which will help us. You're such a big diverse group, so hopefully we'll see some good nominations come through. The importance of the athlete voice. I'm sure you're all hopefully very aware and already taking part in a lot of this, but it's very important for us and a lot of the work that we do. So the Enhanced Games, we announced, so we had a statement on this, and part of our athlete voice has been voicing this over the last several months, but more outspoken definitely in the last month or so since the launch of the Enhanced Games, which will be in Las Vegas next May. We have condemned the event, and we do know it's dangerous and irresponsible. We know from all the facts that we have from athletes who have had serious issues through this, which is very unfortunate. It's also a huge impact on the health and well-being of our sporting athletes as well. But and as well, you know, something that I've been very proud of is being an advocate for what sports is good for. You know, the values that sports represents, and this goes absolutely against every ounce of that, which is probably the most disappointing thing for me. As I'm a father, and I like to see my kids taking you know, good values in sport. So we have a statement, and you can find this online. Part of this as well is we want to work with WADA and the departments there to put together a bit of a Q&A for athletes, so that they can discover a little bit more about the dangers of it, and just being a part of those games, and what it can how it can impact your career in a very negative way. So we'll be releasing this hopefully in the next couple of weeks. The other one is, and it's been such a big part of our project over the last couple of months, is the Code and International Standards update. So this is currently under review, and has been for the last year and a half through 3 different consultation phases. And this is where we update the process for the code, update the code and the international standards. So this was launched in 2023 with invitations to a lot of the anti-doping community. So your national anti-doping agencies, the regional, the labs, and all the education departments around, including the governments, tasked to put impact into this. So WADA doesn't own the code; they don't change it. It's all the community that puts in all the effort to put in the changes. And then once that's put together, then we approve the code and international standards from there. So we have received a lot of impact, a lot of consultation and feedback from anti-doping organizations, but we've received very little from athletes in the past. So we wanted to change this in a big way. So in the second consultation phase, we launched a webinar for athletes to be able to understand and discover how to provide feedback. And this is the first step of what we wanted to do, understanding that it's quite a complicated process. It's not easy to be able to log in, find the article that you want to change, and suggest some comments. So what we did is we launched an athlete-centered consultation, which I'll explain a little bit in the next slide. But you'll see here there's 8 international standards. There is another one as well. So these ones, the international standards, get updated more frequently as changes need happening, but the code itself gets changed only every 5 to 6 years. So this is an opportunity time to be able to get in there and make those changes. And it just makes sure that it's fit for purpose. So reviewing this every 5 to 6 years, make sure that we can change things as needed. And I can tell you over the last couple of years, there has been a huge change in a lot of things, and quite, I think for me, it's very interesting to see that there's a huge amount of athlete-centered feedback that is wanted. So this is why we did our athlete-centered consultation, which is completed in the third consultation phase over the last couple of months, since through in March. So what we did is we wanted to identify some very specific athlete-centered questions within the code that we know we wanted feedback on. The code drafting team, who get all of the comments, so I think the code had hundreds or thousands of comments within the code. Very complicated, but the code review team review all of these and find a good solution coming forward. So we wanted athlete-centered feedback in a number of different areas within the code and international standards. We also wanted to make it athlete-friendly. This is really important to us because we know it's such a complicated document, and it can be quite difficult to understand. And this document, the form that we put out, could have been as simple as, do you agree with this? And even if we had a yes or a no, it just makes that process so much more clearer for us as athletes putting into the code, and for the code drafting team to be able to understand that. But there were a lot of questions, and we received over 600 athlete commissions had participated in this. So we're completely overwhelmed. I think we would have been happy with 10 or 20. So we were very, very pleasantly pleased about this. A lot of feedback, and this is going to go such a long way into the athletes having ownership of this code, which is so important. We've never had this before, so thank you to everyone who shared it, who put some sort of feedback into this. Like I said, every 5 to 6 years, it's a very opportune time for us to make some changes. We will have a little bit more information about this soon, as once we can put all this information together, we'll report on this. But this will help us move into the future, helps us inform on the rules and the procedures and programs. We also are working currently with the Anti-Doping Rights Act. So there's 2 stages to this. The first stage is what pretty much comes out of the code and what relates to the athlete's rights within that code. And then we have the aspirational, which is what we want, what the national anti-doping agencies can take on board and to go and move forward further with. So for athletes and by athletes, we have two big projects going on at the moment, and we'll hear from which is the Athletes Anti-Doping Ombuds. The initial human rights impact assessment, I've been working with Snezana, and we have a subgroup within the Athlete Commission Council that provides some relatable human athlete experiences that have gone wrong within anti-doping and areas that we know should be a human right for athletes. And we've identified a number of improvements which will go into this code, but then it's also, it's a live document, and we're hoping that we'll be able to continue working on these human rights for athletes. We know that anti-doping can be very intrusive and difficult for a lot of athletes. So we're trying to look into that and seeing how we can change things for the better. There's the Speak Up program, and please do find this on the website and share it as much as you can. You should be all aware that WADA has a Speak Up program, and this is how you can confidentially report anything that you see or know. It's really important for us to be able to fight clean sport and protect the clean athletes. So we do receive hundreds of reports every year. There's a I&I team, an intelligence and investigations team, all over the world that look into any serious reports that they look into. It is available in different languages. It's secure. So please do have a look at this and share it out if you know anyone. If you're ever talking to any athlete, please do make sure you share this information. You can submit a report just by clicking on that button, not on the screen, but if you go to the website, you'll be able to find this. So you can report any alleged anti-doping. It can be alleged, so you may not know that it's actually happened or not, but if you have a suspicion that it has, please do submit it, and it can be taken a look into. If you have identified a witness, or you know of anyone that might be cheating, please do submit it, as well as any bribery or corruption that's also not welcomed in sports. So engagement at major events. This is that other piece of the puzzle that we get involved with. We are very pleased to say that all of our athlete engagement activities during the events are athlete-led. So we have athlete council members who are a part of these sessions. We also have independent athletes, so athletes that we know are really good role models in this space. We invite them to come along. So last year in Paris, during the Paris Olympics and Paralympics, we had both athlete council members and athletes in this space. If you remember and you were there, you would have seen the athletes there. And this is important for us because it's athletes speaking to athletes, which is, I think, opens the door a lot more and helps us engage. And it's really good for our athletes too, who are part of the athlete council, to speak and to talk and to get that feedback. So we have, for this year, we have the Pan American Junior Games in Paraguay, the Asian Youth Games in Bahrain, and the African Youth Games in Angola. So it's a continuous cycle. We always do reach out and to find athletes, particularly if we're looking at the Asian Youth Games, we'll be looking for the Asian athletes to be able to be there. Might have different languages or different abilities, but anyone who is a good advocate for clean sport and wants to put their hand up and be in this space, you can reach out to us on our email, which will be on a later slide. But we really appreciate this sort of opportunities to engage. So just to wrap it up, want to stay connected. So this Group 3 appointment process is ongoing. 18th of July, please do submit your candidacy. We hope to see some good, strong representatives from the Asian community. Don't be afraid, speak up, share that information around, and then likewise with the engagement activities, reach out if you want to get involved. Please do. There's always opportunities going on and around, including next year as well. So we'll love to have you on board. And then there's our email. So contact us. We have the email there, so you can sort of reach out to us, any questions that you might have. If you don't feel comfortable speaking to us, there's Anna as well, who is going to be joining us next on the slide. So she will have some information as well. But anyway, happy to take questions later towards the end. We'll move on to...
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ryan. And, it's been covered, the athletes members, who are the athletes council member, the objective for goals being shared, and also the importance of athletes' voice, including, of course, the danger of enhanced games, as we will speak up. And of course, for athletes by athletes, the Ombuds program. So that's going to be nicely going to the introductions of what is this anti-doping athletes ombuds all about. So we are lucky to have Anna. I know it's in her early morning. However, she joining here to share with you what is it this ombuds all about, and what is the support in place for the athletes in Asia, Oceania for sure, but globally. So over to you, Anna.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see so many online this early morning for me. Maybe it's good afternoon or good evening for you. I'm just going to share my slides.
Yeah, I think it's coming.
It's coming?
Yes, it's good.
There we go. So I have the pleasure to be here and talk to you about the Athlete Anti-Doping Ombuds role. And I will also focus on what this Ombuds can do for you as athletes. Just a little bit of background of myself. My name is Anna Thorstenson. I am of Swedish origin, but I'm based in Switzerland in Lausanne. I have worked long time in the anti-doping sphere, actually since 2009. And I'm also having another role on the side, currently being the legal counsel of the International Equestrian Federation. But I do this with passion, the Ombuds role, because I think it's really important to speak up about athletes and have the athletes being able to speak up. I've worked with all levels in the anti-doping community. I have worked with anti-doping organizations, with federations, both international and national. I also worked with the governments on creating laws in relation to anti-doping. I have managed cases before sporting tribunals, such as the Court of Arbitration for Sport. But I'm also a sport lover. I competed in freeride skiing and equestrian jumping. But I'm practicing many more, and it's all on hobby level, so not professionals like majority of you here online today. The presentation will cover these topics. I will go through the background, what an ombuds is and who the ombuds is for, what it is doing and not doing, and how athletes can reach out, what the process is to reaching out, what kind of questions and feedback and success the athletes are seeing through the ombuds, some statistics, and what we can do in the future to support the Ombuds road. And of course, at the end, some questions and discussion. The background of this role is very important. As Ryan mentioned, it is an athlete initiative. Actually, it is the WADA's Athlete Committee that started this program through the Athletes Anti-Doping Rights Act. There was a question about who is there to assure the athletes' right in this whole complex anti-doping system, and where can athletes actually go when they feel like they can't actually go to their anti-doping organization. So obviously there's been a need for an ombuds service which can be mutually beneficial for both athletes, the World Anti-Doping Agency, the anti-doping agencies, and the anti-doping system at large. And as Ayaya mentioned this morning as well, WADA is seeking to become more athlete-centered, and that requires means for athletes to feel that they can be heard by a neutral and well-informed organ. And that is what the Ombuds is. So for you who might not be aware what an Ombuds is, I will explain that shortly. Ombudsman is normally the word, and it's a Swedish word. An ombudsperson is a neutral person from whom individuals can seek guidance and assistance with a specific concern to ensure that certain rights and interests are upheld. For this anti-doping ombudsperson, it is an ombudsperson that provides athletes with cost-free, neutral, and impartial fair advice and assistance in relation to the World Anti-Doping Program and all the entities that plays a role within it. So as you can see, the Ombuds is running under important principles of confidentiality, independency, neutrality, and informality. That means when you're contacting the ombudsperson, whatever you say to the ombuds, it remains confidential. It is your safe space to speak to someone who is neutral about the situation and also independent from other anti-doping organizations such as your National Anti-Doping Agency or the World Anti-Doping Agency. So this is crucial for any ombuds role to work under these principles. Otherwise, you cannot call yourself an ombudsperson. So why do we need the ombuds? Well, as I mentioned, we all know that the anti-doping system is very complex. And as an athlete, it's important that you have this free and confidential access to independent and neutral source of information, someone who can answer your questions or help you better understand your rights and responsibilities, and also help you navigate in this very complex system. So the Ombuds, as I mentioned, is a free and neutral confidential resource for athletes that have questions about anti-doping issues. And it also gives the athletes a safe space to seek information and get advice of their anti-doping organization. So that's where I'm for. The scope and rule of this Ombuds office is quite large. When we ask the question, who is the Ombuds for? Well, it's for any athlete subject to the World Anti-Doping Code. And that is a very large scope. And it also is for any anti-doping related issues. So the questions you might have, as long as it's covering anti-doping and you're covered by the Anti-Doping Code, you can come to me as the Athlete Anti-Doping Ombudsperson. And I will shortly try to summarize the role of the Ombuds in the context of what I do on a daily basis. I offer cost-free, confidential, and independent advice to athletes. I can give you recommendation on best practices for your individual situation, in your case or in your question. I will try to listen and understand your issue while remaining neutral. I will try to assist you with your dispute and with your concern, and that is as an advisory function. I will also try to inform and ensure that athletes' rights and also responsibilities are upheld. I can guide and direct and refer you to individuals, to other parties or resources if I cannot reply to your question. I will advocate for fair and transparent policies and processes. I can also try to identify new issues and opportunities and trends within anti-doping. What's ongoing at the moment? Why are certain athletes very concerned about this problem? Or why are certain organizations concerned about why athletes are taking this kind of medication or drug? So all trends are important for us to follow in the anti-doping system. So my aim is for athletes that issue will be resolved quicker at a reduced cost for everyone and also increase satisfaction of all parties involved in the issue. There are some limitations to the role, and I will start with saying what I can do. So what can the Ombuds actually do? It can look into a matter, apply natural justice, and come to conclusions based on the facts. it can focus on how the rules are applied to athletes and see if there is any wrongdoing in the rules application. It can provide best practices for athletes, which will fulfill a need from athletes to be independent, independent advice and guidance. I can provide information to athletes and direct and connect you to existing services out there. There are so much resources online and perhaps sometimes difficult to navigate among all the information that is out there. I can also explain processes, what is expected from the athlete, and also give you a basic advice regarding the athlete's rights and also what responsibilities that are for you under the anti-doping system. There are also limitations, as I mentioned, and this is what the Ombuds is not. The Ombuds is not a place to report doping, and it's not an investigative resource. So if you have a place to report doping, as Ryan mentioned, you can easily go to Speak Up and report your anti-doping issue. If you have questions about something being investigated, you can go to the Intelligence and Investigations Department at WADA, for example, the INI department. And it's not having any formal authority. So the Ombuds role cannot render any adjudication or give sanctions to an athlete. And is not an advocacy for any party. So I cannot represent athletes in the procedure. So the limitation, it remains as a assistance throughout the process of anti-doping and trying to help you find the best solution for your case. And it's important to mention that this role is not on notice for WADA, since it's operating completely independently from WADA. So if you have a complaint to WADA, I will connect you with the right reasons to put forward that complaint. I think it's important to see that the independency, the operational independency from WADA is there so that you feel safe and come forward also when you have a complaint about WADA, for example. And please remember, the use of the Ombuds is entirely voluntarily. So, very important information now. How can you reach out to the Ombuds person? Please take a picture of this screen or go to the QR code and scan and find the website. You have my email address here. I will also share this at the end of presentation, but I share it twice, so make sure you have it. These are the Ombuds contact details. And what happens then when the athlete is contacting the Ombuds person? Well, the Ombuds obviously tries to reply to you as soon as possible, initially through a platform or by email or text message. There is on the website a platform where you can send a secured email. You can send it anonymously, and we can have an exchange of information without you having to give away your name. The Ombuds might, however, ask for further information and questions related to your case for evaluation of the situation. It is very hard to give a proper advice on a situation without knowing the exact details of the case. So I might ask you to share your notification letters or decisions taken in your situation or other important documentation. I might also schedule a call or a video call to discuss the situation. I want to have this relationship with you that I feel like I'm there for you to reply to your questions. I can also, if you agree, contact the National Anti-Doping Organization or any other anti-doping organization involved in your case and try to mediate the situation with this organization. And I can also seek guidance from other experts, such as scientists or other lawyers who are experts, for example, in a certain country. But this is only with your consent. So remember, the use of the Ombuds is entirely voluntarily, or whatever information you put forward to me, I can only share with your consent. So what kind of questions does the Ombuds have? Well, it can be any kind of question. As you can see from this slide, there are many questions about the process itself. For example, I have received a notification letter and I don't know what to do. I have been notified of an anti-doping rule violation, but I have not doped and I don't know the source of this substance. I really don't want to do anything wrong. Can I use this medication or supplement? I don't think my anti-doping procedure was fair. I think there was a breach of my rights. So there are a lot of questions about the process itself, but also questions about what is prohibited and what is allowed to use in competition or out of competition or in sports in general. There are also enormous amount of questions in relation to supplements. And as you know, supplements is a very tricky question because when you take supplements, you put yourself at risk just by taking a supplement. So I want to highlight that later, but supplement is very much something that athletes are curious about and want to know more. There might be question about whereabouts or TUEs, how I apply for a TUE or how I can appeal my whereabouts situation. There might be questions about the procedural step or the next steps to be taken in the process. There are also athletes' rights concern, where athletes believe that I have been sanctioned and I don't think the decision is right. And also I have concerns about how my anti-doping organization handled the situation, and I believe there were clear violations of my rights. There are, of course, as well, concerns about the anti-doping process and the costs involved in such matters, and some athletes are concerned and wanting to have legal aid and where to apply for legal aid, both financial and legal support in their process. These are all the kind of questions that athletes have, and many more. The feedback from athletes is of course hard because some of the athletes don't get back with any feedback at all, but the ones that have done so are, I would say, in general, satisfied with the services. As you can see, they're happy to have been able to speak to someone who's neutral and can help them in their situation. For example, I think your input changed the outcome of my case. Thank you so much. I feel helpless in this process, and that you're supporting me in this difficult time is important. Even if the outcome of my case did not change, it was helpful to have you to talk to. And your help led to a lower sanction because I could find the source of the positive. But of course, everyone is not happy. There was also people saying that this was absolutely useless and a waste of my time. You could not give me a helpful answer. Indeed, that is the case. I cannot help everyone because their situation might be a tricky one that cannot be changed, but I will at least try to do my best to support the athlete. There are some athlete success stories that I wanted to share with you. For example, there have been cases where violations were withdrawn due to the procedural errors, as noticed by the ombudsperson. And there were also decisions that were rendered more timely due to the ombuds intervention. For example, some anti-doping organizations might take some time to render a decision, and when the ombuds is putting forward the concern of the timeline, normally a decision is issued quicker. There are also situations where cost in a decision was adapted because the ombuds encouraged the anti-doping organization to only charge the actual cost of the proceedings and not additional costs due to the athlete's individual situation. But most important, I think, is the re-evaluation of facts and also the fault level of the athletes, thanks to the ombuds mediation. For example, an athlete might not have been able to find the source of their positive sample, and that is something that the ombuds can help evaluate and investigate and try to find such source. And given that you have the source, you might have a completely different sanction than from the start of the proceedings. So there are success stories, even if when you are in an anti-doping situation in the first place, it might be an uncomfortable and a scary situation to be within. I'm there to try to help you. I would also like to give you a few examples of cases which are very tricky. For example, I mentioned supplement use. I would say the majority of cases where athletes do not know where the substance is coming from, it's coming from supplement use. I know supplements are very commonly used by athletes out there in the world, but please be aware that when you take a supplement, it doesn't go through a process like medications do before they end up in a pharmacy. So supplement use is not under the strict control of governments, for example. So a supplement might be indicating that it is completely drug-free, that it does not contain any prohibited substances. But despite that, it might contain prohibited substances that are not on the label of its ingredient list. And this is crucial to be aware of. So when you need to take or want to take supplement, please take the following steps. Contact your national anti-doping agency to see if they have a list of supplements that are actually approved in their country. Check all the ingredients on the prohibited list. And also, if none of the first are positive, still go to the website where you can find approved supplements. I can provide that if you contact me. So there are supplements that are batch checked and also controlled in a more efficient manner, so you can take safe supplements. You don't have to buy online unsafe supplements. Please be aware of that. That's my first warning. My second warning is for cases where athletes who are in a situation where they need medical treatment. And as you might be aware, and I hope that you're aware, if you need to take medication during sporting activities, you need to apply for a TUE, a therapeutic use. I see a lot of unnecessary cases where athletes did not have a TUE, which means that they're breaching the anti-doping rule violations. This is also something that can be avoided. So please contact your anti-doping organization for further guidance on how to apply for a TUE. And the last one is, of course, the one topic that is on everyone's mind in the last, I would say at least the last year, is the issue of contamination. Contamination, I believe, will happen more and more because we're exposed to prohibited substances in ways that we were perhaps never before. Contamination means that there is something in the environment, perhaps, or in your contact area which might be contaminated. We have had cases where athlete support personnel were taking a spray to try to heal a wound and then somehow transferring this medication, which is prohibited, to the athlete through, for example, massage. We have had cases where athletes have ingested meat which have been contaminated with substances that are prohibited and therefore tested positive because for example, the cows were treated with prohibited substances. So as you can imagine, contamination is very common, and maybe you believe it's hard to prevent those, but I just wanted to highlight that there are steps to take. Make sure that you are aware of the risk. If anyone in your surrounding is on medication, be aware that that might lead to a contamination in your situation. And just being aware of that it can happen is helping you a lot in a situation. That's enough of examples. I will just provide you with a few statistics. So the Anti-Doping Ombuds program has been up and running for about 2 years. And by the end of the year, we had about 200 cases, as you can see, from 54 countries and 38 sports. And these are the countries and the sports. And if you look carefully on this list, unfortunately, there are not so many countries from Asia. There are a few from Oceania, but not so many from Asia. So I want to see a change for that in the future. When you have questions about anti-doping, please contact me. And how can you help then? Why are we here today? I want to provide you with some feedback what you can do in your organization. For example, as athlete, what can you do to support the Ombuds program? As athletes, you are the contact to other athletes, and your help is key. So you can ensure that athletes are aware of the ombuds, include contact details on websites, social media, and anti-doping education sessions, for example. You can inform the athletes about the ombuds' existence. So to have more athlete engagement, your help is needed and key for the success. And in addition to that, I know that there are some of you working for anti-doping organizations out there. So what can you do as a NADO to support the athletes anti-doping ombuds role? Well, your role is to assist and guide the athletes in general. So take the first steps in helping the athletes in the anti-doping process so that they don't feel alone in this process. It's a very scary thing to be notified of a positive case. And ensure that athletes are aware of the ombuds. For example, include the contact details in notification letters or on your website. You can also proactively work and educate about the ombuds role. You can also, in order to help athletes in general, create legal ed programs and also create local ombuds offices, if it is possible and if you have the time and resources to do that. Thank you very much for being here today. That's all I had to say. And please find again my contact details, the Anti-Doping Ombuds website, the QR code. And thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you very much, Anna. And I didn't know, but the ombuds itself is a Swedish term. So something I learned, but at the same time, the last two slides to illustrate what is it that the key take-home messages. And Anna, I think it'd be good that if you could put the slides down. But for everybody, she has shared the QR code and also the email address that you can reach to Anna. And we can share with you in terms of where you can find the email address and the QR code, as well as the one which had been shared by Ryan during his presentation. But thank you. And hopefully through this webinar, you can reach out to Anna with regard to independent, of course, cost-free, any advice to be sought from her with regards to anti-doping in general. So just conscious of time, but which I just like to go into the Q&A. We have received a couple of questions in advance of the webinar as well, but I just want to take one here and I want to ask to Ryan to answer. But I'm just going to read it out, the question. Thanks for the organizing the session, much appreciated. While athlete-centered approach are greatly appreciated, I personally feel that athlete suggestions and concerns must reach to those who govern sports so they can understand and provide appropriate support in all aspects. So Ryan, over to you. Any views or suggestions?
Thank you. Yeah. I think this is a constant concern and issue from athletes and athletes representatives, and some are definitely much worse than others. And I'm very fortunate that I'm a part of my NOC. I was chair of our NOC Athletes Commission, and I was very, very well heard and had a lot of impact on our NOC, but it's not always the case. Likewise with any international federations, athletes commissions and things like that, it can be very difficult. And it's really hard having all of this feedback and not being heard. It's very difficult. But yeah, I mean, look, within WADA, I feel as though we're very well heard, and we have a lot of really good collaboration with all the different departments. It's really been really good. For us in particular, what we're trying to do is to work out and put together a matrix of athlete representation from around the world. And so we know we already have that from the NOCs. The IOC have a great collection, the IPC as well. What we want to do is to collect more information around the NADOs, the athlete representation within the anti-doping atmosphere, more specifically, because then we can hear those concerns and we can use our connections. Yeah, you're representing the Asia Oceania area, so we can get that feedback and give it to Yaya, or we can give it to someone else who we know can take it directly to the top. So our voice is important, and we're trying to build this community of athlete feedback and work out how we can work together for that. We know it's really important, so we're looking at working together. around the NADOs, probably specifically, I don't know if the question was around a NADO and giving advice or feedback there. A lot of NADOs don't have athlete representation, and that's something that we're working on as well, is to put together a bit of a toolkit, a bit of an idea, a way for a NADO to be able to incorporate an athlete commission or a council or athlete representation within that anti-doping, the national anti-doping space. So I currently sit in that in Papua New Guinea, which is quite overwhelming, but it's really good to be able to have that athlete feedback and make sure that, no, you guys need to do more education. We have athletes that are complaining about this. This is what you need to fix. So it's really important for me to be in that space, and we want more of it. We do know a number of NADOs that do have this area. So keep at it. I know it can be very frustrating, but use your networks, whether it's the IPC, the IOC, the WADA Athlete Council. Use as much as you can to be able to share your voice.
Thank you, Ryan, for that. Yeah, I'm sure if you have any suggestions that the Athletes Council should be able to share with you in terms of the toolkit that Ryan has just mentioned, so do reach out to us. So just conscious of time, so I will close the webinar. However, to everybody joining here, you'll be receiving the YouTube link once it's ready to be published. And of course, that there is QR code and an email address, as well as the deadline is 18th July for the Group 3 Athletes Council, WADA Athletes Council, candidacy application. If you cannot reach to the URL website, we can for sure forward it to you. And then please, athletes, be encouraged to put your application for this Group 3 election. So thank you very much, Anna and Ryan, for the very insightful and very comprehensive sharing with regards to our athlete-centered approach for the athletes and by the athletes. So we wish to do athlete-centered webinar continuously for Asia and Oceania. For the participants, thank you very much for coming in. And then please make sure that athlete-centered approach to be spread out by the athletes to the athletes as well. So thank you very much and see you soon.